Before the Depp versus Heard trial, I had never followed a legal case. And quite bluntly, I didn't know anything about it. And the only reason that I hopped on to do any coverage for it whatsoever was because Andy asked me. And I made the decision to try to follow the case as neutrally as possible and to make my opinions based on the evidence that I saw. And after the case was over, I figured that I would just kind of go back to my normal. I've always been very into music and pop culture, and I figured that's where I would go back to for the most part. But I think for a lot of YouTubers, including myself, the Depp versus Heard trial was very transformative in our lives. Through it, I was introduced to a lot of channels on LawTube, and because of the work that I did with Popcorn Planet, I had the privilege of getting to connect with some of them.
Looking at your testimony as a performance and not something genuine. And that's what she kind of fell into that trap.
100%. I was just going to say, I think you're absolutely right, because there's a difference between, Dr. Curry looking at the jury and explaining the CAPS test and the T-scores and how they all work and everything else, and watching the faces of the jury to make sure, like, okay, am I explaining this in a way that people who are not, as educated in this as I am will understand, because they are complicated concepts, to then flashing forward to Amber going, I use pledge and donate synonymously. I'm no expert, but studying that trial gave me a new appreciation for the legal system. And it also introduced me to some of the most bonkers things I have ever seen in a courtroom.
You didn't know what could cause damage to Mr. Depp's hand while you were there on March 8th, correct?
Dr. Kipper told me he sustained an injury on one of his fingers.
Objection, hearsay.
Wait, you asked the question.
Oh.
Because you brought muffins, you said, from your husband, right? You gave those to Ms. Heard, correct?
May I clarify what occurred so that we can stop talking about the muffins?
Mr. Depp was trying to urinate in the foyer, wasn't he?
No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his pants, didn't he?
I think I would remember
Relevance.
Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow. Next question.
And you were trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house.
So after the trial, I started following a couple of other cases. One that comes to mind is the Darrell Brooks case.
I know he's muted, but I can certainly hear him from this side. He appears to be yelling at the top of his lungs. I can't decipher what he's yelling.
I'm still asking if it's lawful law. But sociology has always fascinated me, and I think that there are certain court cases and legal proceedings that change the public consciousness. It brings certain social issues to light and moral issues to light, and then we all have to discuss it and figure out where we stand. And just like life, legal proceedings can be complicated. It's not always black and white. Sometimes there's a lot of gray areas. And I think there's also the human instinct of not being able to look away. I often think about the OJ case. When the car chase happened, my dad was a bartender, and he's told me that when it came on TV, everything just stopped. Everyone grabbed another drink and they sat down and they watched, and they could not look away. So when I saw a lot of people talking about the Murdaugh case, I figured I probably needed to get up to speed, especially since there were already a couple of TV specials and there is a Netflix series coming out soon. So I sat down, grabbed a snack and a drink, and started to watch some of the coverage on the case. There are no words to describe to you the complexity and the insanity of this case. I didn't believe it at first. It's honestly like a movie. I feel like it is a real-life John Grisham novel. It is bonkers. And the more you look at it, it just gets worse and worse and worse. I want to stress that this case is complicated. It's not possible for me to give you a 30-second summary that encapsulates everything that has gone on here. And the journalists who are covering this have had to put immense amounts of time into understanding this case. But to majorly oversimplify this case, it revolves around the Murdaugh family. And the Murdaugh family is a prominent legal family in the state of South Carolina. Members of the family have been involved in the legal system there since 1920. And since 2014, Alex Murdaugh and members of his family have been implicated in multiple cases. Some that are unaliving cases, some that are corruption, insurance fraud, not legal substances. And in particular, the unalivings cases are rabbit holes all on its own. One of the cases actually involves their housekeeper/nanny. And then in 2021, Alex Murdaugh's wife and one of his sons were unalived. And at this time, the state has charged Alex with the unalivings. Since these charges, other cases have been reopened, and at this time, Alex has over 100 charges against him. This is an incredibly serious case. And at the end of the day, I really just want to see there be justice served. I want the truth to come out regardless of what it is. And I hope for some peace for the families involved and that some wrongs can be made right here. So the other night, like many others, I sat down to watch the opening statements. I was prepared for the gruesome. I was prepared for the shock. I was prepared for the ugly of what was coming in this case. And I want to be clear that I'm not an expert. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a legal professional. But I couldn't help but notice the defense attorney, Dick Harpootlian. And I believe that's how you say his last name. And I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Pronunciation and me are not friends. I don't mean any offense. He made some interesting choices in his opening statement. The first was that he kept saying butchered and innocent. I was honestly having flashbacks to Elanie Bredahoff asking the same questions over and over and over.
Butchering, butchered. And when I say butchered, brutally butchered, butchered, butchered. Innocent, innocent, innocent. Presumed innocent. Presume him innocent. Butcher, innocent.
And then near the end of the statement, he says this.
Now, if during this process over the next however long we're here, I say something or do something that's most certainly based on my career, I will do that irritates you or angers you. Sometimes I'm a little rough. Don't hold that against Alex. Hold it against me. If I say something that offends you in some way, don't hold that against Alex. Hold it against me.
That's weird, right? Like, I feel like the jury should be focusing on the case, not the image of the lawyer. And in a case that is already so controversial and so complex, why would you hire a lawyer that admittedly has caused controversy? And then I started wondering, what the heck has this guy done? What justifies him saying this to a jury? So I Googled him. Well, that looks messy. Oh, that's not good. Oh, that's really not good. So yes, he said some problematic things, for sure. But that doesn't mean that he's a bad lawyer. But his attitude in the courtroom emerged, and it was not appreciated.
Your Honor, objection, and if he's going to pursue this frivolous line of questioning, I'd ask the jury be excused. No evidence whatsoever.
Objection is overruled. Let's pose the question.
Were those lines in the water consistent with blood?
Objection.
Objection sustained.
Thank you.
I don't need to be thanked for any ruling.
No, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Expressing my gratitude is improper. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Honor. No, just make the court's indulgence.
Motion to strike his questions about blood from the record, and the jury be instructed to disregard those questions.
I've informed the jury that they're to disregard any question when I sustain the objection. They were previously instructed on that.
Yes, thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we are not even through the first full week of trial yet, and the judge is already pissed.
Before the jury comes in, I want to review a few of the rules of court and rules of procedure with counsel. There shall be no objection, no argument on objections unless requested by the court. The examining counsel only shall make objections. If Mr. Griffin is examining, going to cross-examine, Mr. Griffin makes objections. Likewise with the state's attorney general. Not any and everyone can jump up and object and argue. Any questions about either of those rules?
Your Honor, I understand the rule. So, as with the witness, they were attempting to get to testify about blood in the water yesterday, I objected, and it was a speaking objection. I apologize. But when I object, will you, and sometimes invite argument, or I'm trying to preserve objections in the record, and I'm just wondering, and since he doesn't get an appeal, that's not his concern, how would you like me to handle that?
Well, the objection speaks for itself, but if we have speaking objections, if one party makes an objection and proceeds to argue it through a speaking objection, I give equal time to opposing side So we end up having a debate rather than that interrupts the trial and all of that.
For instance, they've listed hearsay, in my opinion, and I object. Should I say objection hearsay or just object?
Yes, sir.
I can do that.
Yes, sir. The legal basis for the objection
Okay.
only.
Not a real advocacy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
All right.
Objection hearsay. But I'm really sorry. Did we seriously just watch a lawyer ask a judge how to lawyer because he was not lawyering properly? I'm also like, I'm sorry. That last look on the judge's face, I have seen that face on Judge Penny. It's the same face. And the more that I look at this, the more red flags I see. And I'm not saying that a lawyer has to be perfect, but I have so many questions about his method. And I was even watching the Law and Crime chat, and there were people that were seriously comparing his method of questioning to Darrell Brooks.
Is that lawful law? Is that lawful law? Is it lawful law?
Sir.
Is it lawful law?
Anyway, this is just something that I wanted to share because a case that I didn't think could get any more crazy just got crazier. And I know a lot of my audience does enjoy true crime, so I thought you guys would appreciate it. And I know I will be like many of you following this case and trying to stay up to date. I know this isn't my normal content, but I appreciate you watching through to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to, and if you really like this video, feel free to check out my membership option for my community of space angels. Well, that's it. Much love. Bye.